FAO is very concerned about the situation in Ukraine, as we are very concerned about the situation in every country, particularly those affected by conflict and other crises. So, but in particular in Ukraine, we have a very specific situation. Agriculture is very important for the country's economy. We have 7 million IDPs, we have close to 5 million refugees in the neighboring countries, but at the same time, Ukraine is a very important world food producer, right? We are in an environment that the food prices were on a high before the conflict started, before the outbreak of the war in February 2022, and the country produces a significant amount of food.
Governments have to protect and look after their own populations, but is there a risk that some governments will shield their grain supplies? They won't export them because they're worried about their own populations?
Well, we have already seen that, right? But generally, the general prescription is to keep the trade open, both trade in grain, in wheat in particular, and in the fertilizer. Now, if a country might be tempted to introduce such a policy that we are going to restrict the exports of wheat because we are worried about the impacts on the domestic markets, and we are worried that there might not be sufficient supplies on the domestic markets. What this generally leads to is that farmers observe the high prices on the international markets, and they would like to make those high prices. So you have discontent among the farmers who want to export, rather than selling at the domestic government, and earn the foreign exchange, which then the country could use to import some other goods. It's not only the bread, right, that is part of the human diet.
And how long do you estimate the world can survive without getting the normal supplies from Ukraine and Russia?
We will have to see how long how long the conflict is going to continue, and how long what will be the impact on the logistical infrastructure in Ukraine, whether it will be able to restart exports and supply those to the world. If this is not the case, then countries indeed will have to just look for alternative origins and be ready to pay higher costs. Now, for the current, we are now at the end of the marketing year, right? Currently, the wheat that is being traded is the wheat that was harvested almost a year ago, in June, July 2021. Soon the new harvest is going to come in the Northern Hemisphere, right? So we'll have to see exactly how this is going to work out and where countries can get sufficient supplies.
I wonder if all of this, COVID and the conflict in Ukraine, has refocused the minds of government about the importance of food security. Do you see governments, and certainly yourselves, taking it more seriously?
The United Nations was always concerned about the impact on food security in the countries affected by crisis, right? And by high level of food insecurity. And I think that the current discussion in terms of, which involves two very big players on the international markets, is bringing the discussion on food security also closer to home in other countries, perhaps that were not directly affected by alarming food insecurity levels, but they are now concerned about the impact of these high food and energy prices on domestic inflation.
Monika Tothova, many thanks to you for joining us here on The Agenda.